Suzuki Iruma was once just a normal human, with no powers and lived a depressing life, abused by his own parents. But fast forwarding 400 chapters and my guy has unlocked multiple insanely powerful forms that already make him one of the strongest in Babyls. So up first is obviously his base. Now, whilst it might seem boring, human Iruma has grown significantly from the beginning of the story. He may look like the softest kid in the Netherworld, but human Iruma with no transformations, no evil cycle, no demon king form, is already one of the most unexpectedly powerful characters in all of Babyls. So let's start with his first ability, if you want to call it that. And this is something he brought from the human world. You see, Iruma was raised in constant danger thanks to his insane parents. And because of that, his body learned to dodge anything that threatens him, instinctively. Iruma doesn't think, he doesn't analyse, he doesn't react, he just moves. And this has evolved further since he reacted faster than even the 13 crowns and the 3 greats in the Davicular mark. Then you've got his innate human abilities that work within the Netherworld. Iruma's blood heals demons seemingly instantly and can grow plants at an absolutely crazy scale. The Harvest Festival wasn't just Ali-san, Iruma's blood was the catalyst that saved him in this arc. Archery is where Iruma's raw talent really comes to the surface though, as Bachiko's training unlocks Iruma's perfect combat style. He's impossible to hit up close because of his Ultra Instinct, which I talked about, and lethal at a distance. Within his first year at Babyls, he became a full-on master of archery as he copied Bachiko's technique in the Evil games, impressing even the president of the Barbatos clan. And then he even had a moment in the Heartbreaker arc where he surpassed Robin, a genius of the Barbatos clan who Bachiko admitted actually has more talent than she does, meaning that Iruma's at the very top. Because Robin's bloodline magic is literally archery, and this is just base Iruma with no form, no boosts, and then his archery leveled up again against Amy Azumi as he broke his seemingly impenetrable barrier magic. This is the bloodline of a rank 8 demon, and Iruma by focusing annihilated it and almost killed him. This is because of the power of the Barbatos clan, which has been instilled within Iruma now. Bachiko herself said that they can pierce through anything, and we literally saw her shoot through space recently. But with Iruma, yeah, he has no limits because remember that he has no bloodline magic to rely on, which might seem like a bad thing, but given the fact that he's started to reach Bachiko's level, remember that recently, when he pretended to be her, Shaki thought it was her. So it means that he doesn't need bloodline magic as a crutch. His archery is so busted that honestly it deserves its own video, which will come at some point, but anyway. Even more impressive is how human Iruma performs against actual threats. In the Heartbreaker arc, he fights Shida, a trained professional demon assassin, to a standstill, and yeah, she was holding back, but so was he. And despite this, Iruma read her movements, predicted her landings, and adapted to her abilities, and pins her down mid-battle. Bro even strips her without realising. And you remember when I said that he was holding back? Well, he was. He didn't want to hurt Shida. And you remember when I brought up the Amy Azumi barrier magic, right? Well, when Kiryu did the same thing, and he entrapped all of Babyls, every teacher failed to break through it, but Iruma succeeded. It wasn't his Demon King mode, it wasn't some transformation, it was Iruma pouring everything he had into a single moment and creating overpowered magic that no one can ever defeat. With Panda Ruler, Iruma can momentarily reach Sullivan levels of power. And of course he can summon Kalego, which I'm just going to talk about real quickly because a human summoning a Chet level demon whenever he wants is already outrageous. Then Opera's training pushes Iruma even further. His stamina skyrockets, his reflexes sharpen beyond what they already were, he learns non-verbal magic, and by the time we reach the later arcs, Iruma is not only insanely powerful, but he's starting to reach the teachers of Babyls, and keeps evolving at a rate that no demon in the story can mirror. His perfect evasion, his archery, his intelligence, his instinct, and the strange properties of his human biology combined with something that basically no one can stand up to. And this is Iruma without any transformations, before any demon forms, just Iruma, the human, and he's already this unstoppable. And honestly, given the recent chapters, Iruma's identity as a human is even more important than we once thought, because we learn why demons crave to eat humans, because they gain an insane amount of power from doing so. They're basically a potent drug that makes a demon even more destructive. Evil phases returning to Origins has nothing nothing on what happens if you eat a human, which further explains why Kiryu will be the final villain of the series, but that's for another video. But it is important to bring up because Iruma is basically a mythical creature within this world, even without transformations and Ali-san. But you've all been waiting for me to talk about the good stuff, so let's talk about the first Iruma transformation, and that's Evil Cycle Iruma, and this is something that's a blessing, as it's become more and more rare as the series has continued, as this is a complete shift in his personality thanks to Ali-san basically forcing an artificial evil cycle. Evil cycles happen because demons have a tendency to commit acts of violence and even sadism when their stress builds too high. The loss of reason reduces their inhibitions and limits, so they lose all control and return closer to origins. It also gives demons a huge boost to their powers, abilities, everything. But what about Iruma? He still couldn't say no when he was asked, and his main goals are still very selfless, which people don't seem to understand. Remember that the whole reason he got the Royal One classroom was so that other students would stop badmouthing his friends. So whether he gets a power boost is debatable, but he's definitely better, or more accurately, more confident in using his abilities, using Raphael without hesitation, standing up to Kalego, and that's just the first time we see this. Then of course he took the Demon King's throne, with everyone in silence as they were pretty much watching the future. Then he was selfless again in the Akadol games, when he chose to activate this evil cycle on his own accord, begging Ali-san to do so he could help out Kuromu. Bro, this was low-key just Iruma making everyone question their sexuality and having everyone in the story fall in love with him. But recently, oh my god, against Malleus, he not only went into his evil cycle, but he seemed to do it with pure rage and bloodlust. We waited hundreds of chapters for this, with Iruma popping up and making the greatest criminal in history shiver with excitement. He was instrumental in Malleus' defeat, with perfect archery to support his teammates, and he won. So yeah, obviously this is a huge victory for him. The fact that he was possessed to open the Demon King's door proves the fact that this evil cycle is basically just him becoming more demonic, more demon DNA to be activated within him, which becomes more and more of a theme. And this is something I've talked about in past videos, you know. I'll pat myself on the back. But my point is here that Iruma doesn't really need this transformation so much anymore, as he's became more confident as the series continued even without an evil cycle. He doesn't need the extra kick of confidence, even though I love Chad Iruma. It's proof of his growth that he doesn't need to rely on the transformation as much. He handles most in his default state now. And the following transformation just proves my point even more. Iruma's transformations aren't just generic power-ups, and the next one is the exact same way, as this is the moment that he stops being a human in the demon world and finally becomes what he was destined to be. Chapter 421 is the clearest confirmation we've ever had that Iruma is going to surpass Delkira himself. Everything starts in the in-between, the world between worlds. Mephisto and Bashiko literally bend space just to reach Iruma and keep him from being dragged back to Earth. Their only job is to hold open a path home while Iruma runs towards the demon world. But something goes wrong. Japan itself starts calling back to him, actual voices, familiar sounds from his old life. No one else can hear them, only Iruma, and that's because he understands every word. The second Iruma responds, space grabs him, he starts to fall and it looks like it's over, until Ali-san appears. Ali reminds him of what demons are made of, desire. The one thing Iruma has always hidden, the thing he only admitted once during the Harvest Festival, when he finally shouts what he wants, to be a hero. But also deep down, to be a demon. Something inside the ring snaps fully awake as Ali transforms into Delkira and grants Iruma his power. It's absolutely insane. This isn't a vision, this isn't a metaphor, this is the memories, the will, and the mana sealed within the Ring of Gluttony that finally takes full shape. Ali has always been Delkira's consciousness, slowly returning piece by piece as Iruma ranked up, and now the awakening is pretty much complete. Delkira gives Iruma the incantation that Rock taught him, Change Loki, but this time it isn't a costume. Ali pours every drop of mana into it, and Iruma fully transforms into a demon. Horns, teeth, wings, eyes, everything. This is Iruma's true Demon King form. What makes this form different to Evil Cycle Iruma or anything that's happened previously is because Iruma isn't actually pretending here. He isn't losing control, he isn't acting, he finally accepts the part of himself that wanted to belong in the Netherworld, the part of him that wanted to be a demon. And because of that, Delkira's power finally fuses with him directly. The wings alone tell a story. They match Delkira's sealed wings from the beginning of the arc, just restored and alive. The proportions, the horns, the expression. Iruma doesn't just look like a demon, he looks like Delkira's successor, a mix of Delkira's true form and Iruma's own identity. And then the most crazy feat happens, as Iruma forces himself back into the demon world. Keep in mind that Mephisto and Bachiko were struggling to keep this gate open, and Iruma just teared through dimensions with raw willpower. That's something that even the 13 Crowns would call insane, and he's only rank 5 at this point in the story. The drawback is obvious though, as it's basically the same as Pandarula, as he's pouring all of his magic into this transformation. When it burns out, Iruma is drained, vulnerable, and unable to fight. But anyway, when he crashes back through the gateway with Amory and Mephisto in tow, Iruma shifts back to normal. Mostly anyway, because his hands are still demonic, his teeth are still changing, proving that this wasn't some illusion. It wasn't a brief hallucination in the in-between worlds. This transformation is real, it was witnessed, and people are going to start asking questions at some point. But the truth is simple, Iruma isn't running away from the demon world anymore. Where he goes from here and when he learns to control this form is the biggest mystery for me right now with his growth. But all of these transformations just confirm that Iruma becoming the Demon King isn't symbolic anymore, it's already happening. These aren't just power-ups, these are Iruma choosing who he wants to be, which is why I love these transformations and why they're some of my favourite in all of Shonen. But if you guys want to enjoy more Iruma content, then I recommend either joining my Discord server or clicking this playlist because it has all of my Iruma content from even 2 years ago, which I'm really embarrassed about. But anyway, I apologise about the delay to this video. I went away for my birthday last month for about a week. And then I was also just sick for the first week of January. I had a lot of stuff going on. I didn't even have my microphone for the final week, so basically 3 weeks of January, I wasn't available at all. That's why I was just doing TikToks. But anyway, see you guys next time.